So late 90s, about 1998, I decided, right, I'm going to buy a high-end digital back for the Sinar to replace the 5.4. So basically you had the repro houses and the scanning houses that had Creo Cytex kit. I looked at Creo Cytex Leaf, as they brought out stuff called Leaf digital backs. So I decided, right, I'm going to go down this Leaf route, because you still had to deliver then CMYK press ready files exactly like the designers would have had them from a repro house, so from a scanning house. And so the whole thing was very much set to, well, it has to be exactly the same as if they're going to scan a transparency and be given a transparency. I went up to London, Docklands in London, and to the Creo Cytex dealers in London. And it was a guy, and he sold all this high-end kit to repro houses. His sell was generally sort of £250,000 upwards. You know, people spent a fortune there. And that was where he was sort of, that's where his thing was. And when I turned up outside at this place in Docklands, there were 2 red Ferraris outside and in this, you know, plush, nice, great offices. And so I went in. I mean, I'm intimidated already, thinking, well, you know, what am I doing here? So I go in, and he's prepared all the cameras for me. And there were 2 cameras you could buy. And it was a Leaf Volare and a Leaf Cantari. Now, the Leaf Volare was a 3-shot RGB monochrome chip. The Leaf Cantari was a Bayer RGB single-shot chip. You could shoot people on the one, but you couldn't shoot people on the other. One was product, and one was could do product and people. So I needed, obviously, to do both, because I was, you know, even though 80% of my work was product, still life stuff, I still did the odd shot of people. Anyway, I was there going through, and the files were great. I mean, it was only a 6 megapixel back. It was tiny, really, compared to today. But the files were really, really great. In repro, they looked fantastic. And so I said, right, okay. And so coming towards the end of my time there, and he said, I said, I really don't know which one to buy. Now, bearing in mind, the back, I had to buy all new Apple Mac computer as well, monitor, as well as the back. So all that's going to cost me 25,000 quid. So this was a serious investment in 1998. So thinking, right, okay, well, I'm going to have to do one or the other. He said, well, why don't you buy both? I was thinking, that's insane. I can't buy both. I've got £50,000 to spend. So I said, oh, no, I can't do that, because he just thought it was just a drop in the ocean in his.
Well, he had his 2 Ferraris.
Exactly, his 2 Ferraris, and he needed a third one. He wanted a Lamborghini, most probably. So I ended up going down the Cantari route. But I always remember coming back from London, driving back, thinking, right, okay, what am I going to do?
How prepared do you think we were? Because I know you're not a big fan of digital for a particular reason, but how prepared do you think, and how forward thinking do you think we were when digital came in? Not at all. Actually, I was thinking about this the other day. I had a job. It was a tender, so product photography, a load of products in the studio. So they wanted a per shot price, effectively. Obviously digital, you know, spline files, repro ready. I think even with clipping paths as well. So you have to cut them all out. So a very straightforward, simple product photography job. A colleague of mine, Dave, I said to Dave at the time, I said, how much would this job be if we'd have been shooting this on film? And we actually did the exercise. We worked out what this job would have been if we were shooting film. Now, you'd have shot it. You would have had to shot it on the 5.4 camera, but you would use a 6.9 film back, because for economy, for scale, you know, because otherwise it'd been too expensive 5.4 and slow. But you would have had the film, the Polaroids, and the time doing it, because you can't retouch. You would then deliver the transparencies to the client. The client then would have had to have them scanned, the repro done, chromalins, you know, wet proofs, whatever, in the process to get it all done. I think it was like 200 products, something like that. So we reckoned we could do X amount an hour, take so many days. We reckoned this job would have cost in the day, so early 90s, late 80s, to the client would have cost close on 40,000 quid. That's an estimate roughly, but 40,000 quid. I put a price in of 7,500 to do this job digitally, and I
came in on that particular one as the most expensive photographer. I'm thinking, bloody hell, where have we gone wrong? And going back to your point, so back in 1998, what we all should have done as photographers, with this burgeoning digital coming along, what we should have done is got together and said, right, okay, this is great for the client, it's great for us, it's all good, it's going to work, but what we should do is say to the client, right, okay, what the benefit is, you get stuff quicker, you get stuff we can retouch as well and do all that sort of stuff, the workflow is better, and you'll save a percentage of the scanning, because what we should have done is, right, you're saving on film, you're saving on Polaroids, but we're going to deliver this to you, repro ready, saving you time, and we should have charged extra for what we were doing. But what do all photographers do? They sort of hunker down, thinking, they put barriers around themselves, thinking, well, what's the other photographer doing? And we don't collaborate, and bosh, that's it. We lose the market. And we lost an opportunity there and then, in that short window of opportunity, we lost it to making decent money. And all of a sudden, all we're doing then, from 1998 onwards, is effectively buying kit every 6 months because it was evolving so quickly. We're making money, but all of a sudden we're paying less and less. And every year that goes by, our turnover goes down. I mean, I remember one guy I remember talking to, and he did a lot of press and PR work. Obviously, with the press release would go out with a 5x7 print attached to an A4 piece of paper with a press release on it, and the PR company want 500 prints. Absolutely marvellous. So you charge 50 quid to do the job, and then you charge another maybe £600 for the prints, or even £1,000 for all the prints. So all of a sudden, in 95, 96 turnover, he's turning over quite £250,000 a year, bloody marvellous, mostly in the darkroom all the time. 96 to 97 email comes along and bosh, it's gone. They don't need the 5x7 prints anymore. And the photographers have really missed that once in a lifetime opportunity to actually establish that actually we know a lot about what we do. We're very specialist. We take a great deal of care over what we do, and it's been diminished by this digital behemoth coming along and evolving, and we evolve with it, but we haven't evolved our prices.
It's too late now.
Oh, it's gone. It's whole horse is bolted.
Absolutely.
So digital and all this thing about film, film is so much better than digital. Film is not better than digital. It's not. Digital now, the quality of digital is fantastic. The quality of the files is superb. It's effectively easier to work with. You're actually now doing more work than you're getting paid for, because you've got to do all the retouch, you've got to do everything else that comes along with it, and it's very difficult to charge for sometimes. Film is fantastic, was fantastic at making money. That's what film was great at, with Polaroids, and you're making a markup on film, making a markup on Polaroid. I remember 10-8 Polaroids. We were shooting room sets in the studio, or food, or whatever we were doing. We were shooting 10-8 Polaroid. A 10-8 Polaroid was 20 quid a sheet to buy. So I think we're charging out 60 quid a sheet to proof. And it was, you're making serious money. But film, and I understand completely where the cinematographer guys are coming from, and film directors, and there's a difference there, because film has a grain, and it has a feeling, and it has a motion. The actual film grain physically changes from each frame. So you do get a completely different feel. From a photographer, certainly from an advertising photographer's point of view, really, clients just want the finest image they can possibly get, with the finest quality they can possibly get. So digital is perfect for that. Film was never great for that. And that's controversial. I'm sure people disagree with me completely. But I do understand how film has a feeling and a texture and a mood, and I get it. And I'm about to embark on something analog now in the next few months, and because there's certain things I want to do with the analog process, but from a making money point of view and commercial point of view, digital is hands down.
One thing that worries me is the fact that we're being almost saturated with photographers. There are so many people coming out of university now. I think you're reasonably lucky that you've got your regular clients. They know what you're going to charge.
Yes, indeed.
But for a new person on the block, I know that my rate hasn't gone up from probably 10 years, at least. And in many respects, you have to double think, what am I going to charge?
Yeah.
How do we solve this problem?
it's difficult because, as we said earlier, the horse is bolted. However, I think photography has to be treated as a profession, and I think you can't. Instagram is fantastic, and I'm sure everybody can take a photograph of a fantastic sunset and a beautiful woman or a beautiful man or whatever. But when it comes to coming out of university and you've done your training, and you need to find your specialism, you need to find where you want to go. You have to embrace everything you do professionally, take it seriously, and as we know, it's not all about kit. You need to know how to use the kit. But lighting is key, obviously, as we all know. And offering the clients something they can't do with their iPhone. Now, from my point of view, I photograph fairly, what one might think as being very boring things, like a razor handle or a cooker or whatever it might be, but it's very technically involved. So, I think my advice to a student would be is that they need to act professionally, and then when they go and see a new client or they're going to see whoever, that they demonstrate that this is really important. They demonstrate they understand what their client is about, what they're making, the service they're offering. So it's a service they're offering, the product they're offering. They need to understand it. They need to research what is in the marketplace, and they need to offer the client what they're going to produce is of this quality that will allow them to extol the virtues of their service or their product.
But do you think that from the client's point of view that those standards have dropped? The standard that a client expects? Because, for instance, years ago I would get somebody phone me up and say, we need headshots done.
Right.
I haven't done that for years because they can do it on their phone.
Yes.
So they're not thinking of that lovely light and that quality that can be produced by a professional. They're thinking, I only need it for the web.
You can demonstrate how a quality image is different from shooting it on an iPhone or whatever. Also, there are going to be clients, there are going to be people out there who do want to pay virtually nothing and say, right, okay, I'll do it on the iPhone or I'll do it whatever. Well, you'll soon discover them. You go for the meeting, you'll soon discover if that's the case or not. I'm very lucky. My clients, I have really great people. The clients I work with, especially in one company I work with, designers are superb. They really understand their marketing, and they understand where they are in the marketplace and where they want to be in the marketplace. Now, their competitors are currently putting out some really poor stuff. And they recognise this poor, but they're going for sort of this mass market. Whereas they really understand the value of high quality photography and video now as well.
But then what you're saying is that market is shrinking because the mass market is going for a lower quality of
Actually,
of
I don't think it is. I actually think now people are realising that the area is saturated with everybody's a photographer. Absolutely everybody. They put an Instagram filter on it. And you think, oh, that's fantastic. And a sunset with an Instagram filter is mind-blowingly fantastic. You think, oh my God, why can't I do that? That's not the point. It's saturated. Everybody's doing it. It's very, very difficult. So, okay, if you take my specialism as product photography, if you're coming out of university and you want to be a product photographer, a bit like the young lady you sent to me, who was really quite passionate about being a product photographer, and it was quite nice from my point of view. It was a nice interaction. She was really great, and she understood that this is actually photographing something mundane, effectively visually mundane, is really, really challenging. And going back to the point, photographing a sunset, straightforward. Some people do it better than others. And there's some fantastic landscape photographers out there who get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and spend spend months working out that, okay, this is the sun, this is where they're talented, they're fantastic people who do amazing jobs. But she wanted to do product photography, and so there's a market for that. There's a market for people who can do something that's in focus. I mean, actually in focus. So, going back to my thing about lens movements, stopping down to f/22, it's not good enough. You need to be able to, you're doing product photography, you need to be able to, the Scheinflug rule, your parallels are in parallel, blah, 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 blah. So, photographing a building. I know you can do it in Lightroom, you can square up a building in Lightroom, but there's something very satisfying about doing it in camera. You see, because there it is, there's the shot, it's perfect. You got your lens, it's a gorgeous shot of a building with perfect perspective. And also, interestingly enough, what you can do with that camera with video as well, which is another little thing, but that's interesting. So, yes, I think I would say to them, look, there is a marketplace out there, and you need to, when you're going to find your clients, be discerning who you find. Actually do a bit of research on the company. So what have they got now? What's their evolution? Have a look at brochures and see, well, are they actually trying to improve their photography or not? Now, if they're not, and they're happy with, have a look at what their Instagram feeds, look at their Twitter feeds, see what they're putting out there. And you're able to charge them money for it. You see, you at that point then, you're able to offer something which has a value. And I say to all my clients, I should effectively cost you nothing every year. Every year that goes by, everything I do for you, if you're not making significant profit from what I'm doing, then I'm failing. And luckily that's what happens. They make good profits from it, and because their images are good, solid, quality images, and you can charge a good quality price for it because nobody else, there's few and far between doing it. And the photographers out there are doing it, are doing a fantastic job. Wales is very lucky having many of them. And, that's the way ahead. So you can charge proper money for it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your work, because you were good enough to host a student of mine from South Wales University. And when she came back, she couldn't believe how intense a product shoot is because of everything has to be perfect. Everything is so structured. And you will move something a centimetre, a millimetre to make sure it's in the right position for you. Yeah. I mean, you must have the patience of a saint, to be honest.
I think product photographers generally do, because we have problems to get around. And for instance, I shoot on I still shoot on a camera with lens movements because I need the lens movements. I've got a Cambo Actus, which effectively is like a small Sinar camera, and I can change the plane of focus. I've got one client who makes these superb razor handles. They take Gillette heads, and we're doing product photography of those. On the face of it, looks very simple. It's on a sort of white background with a very specific shadow. Now, to get that in focus, full frame, you can't just stop down to f/16, f/22 and hope for the best. You have to have a plane of focus. You have to shift the front lens panel and plane and get the plane of focus. So it is very pedantic and very specialist from that point of view. So yeah, it does take time, and I suppose I do have patience. But I just go in the studio, I put the kettle on, make a cup of coffee, put the radio on, and
get on with it.
It's fun. I like that isolation and that intense workflow, and I still try my very best to get it right in camera before I even touch.
So what products are you actually shooting? What sort of things have you done?
Oh, it's diverse. I mean, so you've got razor handles as one. They're a company in just outside London who I work for. There's another client in Avonmouth. I do loads of product photography of their cookers and ovens and fridges, and when you look at it, you look at the product shot on the page and you think, oh yeah, it's an oven, there we are, there's a fridge, whatever, and you don't give it a second glance that actually has most really taken me 3-4 hours to shoot the one thing. This is the other thing that digital has done. One client, we do photography on location, so we take a fantastic shot of a house on location somewhere. We hire it for a few days, shoot the interior, and then at various different angles. And then what we'll do, we'll shoot products in the studio and drop them into those locations. Now, historically, when you were shooting film, you would have had to have shot everything for real, or you would have built a room set, because you couldn't have gone to somebody's house and ripped out their cooker and put a new cooker in. You'd have built a room set in the studio, you would have brought all the products over from wherever, shot each one. You're looking at the work we do, you're looking at maybe a 4-month, 5-month shoot, to build a room set and do this. Now, I think digital has been fantastic from a client's perspective, there's no question. You shoot on location, and I am now bringing products back to the studio. I am shooting them in the studio at the correct angle, with the lighting that looks identical, and dropping them in, and I'm doing the retouch on the computer. That is very intense and very specific work, and it has to look absolutely authentic. It can't look anything other than real, and that's the important part about it all. And you need all that sort of. That's where you need the lens mounts on the camera and displacement of focus and that sort of stuff.
But you work for clients direct. You don't go through an agency or anything like that. So you've built up a group of clients that you work for regularly.
Yes, I have to say I've got one of my clients I've worked for 24 years straight, nearly every month for 24 years, and I do wear that as a badge of honour. I really look at that as being something I'm very proud of. The thing, and also, I was another client with this week, and we were talking about it. They've been a client of mine for 17 years. I sometimes worry. I think, oh God, I should do some marketing. I should get some more clients. I think, well, I'm not at time to get new clients because I'm working, which is great. But I sometimes think I'm 50 next year, so all of a sudden I'm thinking, right, what am I going to do in my 50th decade? What's it going to be? I got 5 boys, and so they've been expensive to bring up, and the food bill's ridiculous. So I've just worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. You just do, because you've got to pay the bills. But now all of a sudden you're hitting 50, you think, oh, actually 3 of them are nearly gone. And, actually, maybe I could do something like, other than this. Though I do take a lot of joy out of what I do. But going back to your point, working with clients direct, I've never courted design agencies. I don't think people know about me even. I'm sure there's people listening to this and going, who the hell's Simon Regan? I haven't got a clue. And because I just don't. It's the most exposure I ever have. But
is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't. Do you know, Glenn? I don't know. I really don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I've made a living. I've had a great life. I have a great family. Hey, people retire and want to do what I've done with my life, and I think, well, hey, I'd like to have travelled more, but I don't do that sort of work. I'd like to shoot. What we need is to get the clients to actually take me to a fantastic location, shoot an interior of a house, and then I'll come back to studio. But no, they won't do that. So.
Whereas, going back to your work, whereas you are very, very considered in a colour cast or anything like that, do you find that when you show your client, even though you've got it spot on, that sometimes they think, hey,
that's the thing about digital, you see. So I use a color calibration chart in all the shots I do, and I make sure everything is color correct and pedantic with being color correct. All my monitors are color correct. I've got printers, and all my papers are color profiled. I profile all my papers, so the clients will see it, and it's exactly how it looks. But they'll say, well, can we have it a bit more neutral? Can we have it a bit more, if there's a, and so you do change it. You do change things and make things, I always make sure it's never too far. I'm not going to change something. I'm not going to change a product from what it is. It is what it is, and I would never do that. I think there's an integrity thing there. I think it's got to be what it is. But yeah, you do have, you can certainly put a shine on stuff, which maybe.
And I know now that if I did a job for the Western Mail, for instance, or if I phoned the Western Mail up, say that, hey, blah blah, I've got this going on, are you interested? Yeah. The first thing they will say is, can you shoot a little bit of video?
Right.
Okay. Have you got video? And I think video now is even becoming more important than a still, because they can pop it onto their website.
Absolutely.
Now, most of the work that you do doesn't move. But do they still want video?
Oh, absolutely they do. Clients now have, 2009, 2010, Canon brought out the first... Canon didn't know what they had done, basically. Canon brought out a camera which could shoot HD video. And everybody was looking at this thing. And the point being also that it was full frame. So effectively, it had a filmic look, which video had never had before, due to the fact of the sensor size and the depth of field thing. So, but 35mm full frame digital was bigger than 35mm cinema film, actual film, in the cinema world. All of a sudden, cinematographers and realised, oh my god, this is fantastic quality we're getting off these little DSLRs, and all of a sudden, because they're so small, you can put them in places, and it's absolutely fantastic. So I looked at it in sort of 2009. I bought one. I bought a little Canon and had a play with it, and I thought, this is interesting. The quality was very, remarkably good compared to what video was before. I sort of played with this for sort of 2 or 3 years before I even thought that maybe this is something we could offer. And then, sort of about 5 years ago, I decided, right, okay, now I am going to offer this as a service, because it is something I can do. And what's happened is all my clients who do product photography, I do product photography for them, brochures. Now with social media, video works better, and with the websites, video works better. So I'm now shooting video, and I'm moving the camera around the still object rather than because obviously the still object doesn't move. So and that's quite interesting from a point of view of the camera movement and sort of the depth. I did a video a few weeks ago for a client, and we were shooting in the studio, and it was a jib arm. So I've got a camera jib and a gimbal which I hang on the end of the jib, and I can control the gimbal remotely. So, but I had to swing the camera out from the product because we wanted this reveal. So it was a reveal shot. But also you had to maintain focus as well. So with I've got a Sony FS7 digital video camera, and but the autofocus was able to. I can't afford a focus puller. You can't do all that, but it was able to track perfectly this shot, and we were able to jib out and move the gimbal at the same time around, and it evolved beautifully. It looked really sexy and really cool. So that is an exciting area that I'm working in now, and and really, I suppose, with every photography job I'm doing, there's a video element to it. Well, certainly a 60-40 split. Okay, still 60%, 40% video. But I think,
and then you get people like myself who, I've always been a stills photographer. Yeah. I've got a client that says, "Can you do a video?" The first person I phone is you, and yeah, and we did a couple of things together, which was good fun.
Yeah, and the client was, client was delighted with it. Was really pleased with, and that was we did some interesting stuff with sound on that as well, and that's quite interesting. So you diversify from the video, and we created a little soundscape for that. So that was fun, and so it's very enjoyable. And the other thing about video, well, now I'm shooting everything 4K, and the thing is now, off the 4K frames, you get in 24 megabyte stills, which is good enough for an A3 double page spread. So all of a sudden, the client has this like a candy shop. All of a sudden, you go, "Oh, can we take a still frame of that? That's fun. We'll use that." And I've had that this week. Clients I've been supplying still frames from the video as TIFFs.
But you must have a different thought process when you're doing a video.
Very different, yeah. Interesting enough, I mean, obviously we'll evolve to this, but I met a cinematographer called Jack Cardiff back
We'll come on to him in a second.
We will. But he was quite influential in Jack was fun. Jack did African Queen and Black Narcissus. He won 2 Oscars, 3 Golden Globes. He did Black Narcissus. He got his Oscar for Black Narcissus. Superb cinematography. Beautiful light. Beautiful colour. Now, but Jack was always very, very much about... He loved the technical side of stuff. And when I was working with Jack, with his images, he was always... And he was in his 90s... Well, he was in his late 80s when I first met him. Early 80s when I first met him. And he was absolutely absorbed by the technology. He loved what I was doing. So because I'm going to come on to it, I know. But I bought the scanner and the printer and everything. And he was absolutely... thought this was fantastic. He would say, if only this was available when I was shooting. But Jack would resolve issues in camera. That was very influential. So from my point of view now, working with the video, and also, as it happens, my eldest son is a trainee grip at the moment. So that's been interesting as well. the movement of the camera and how you capture a still object with the movement of the camera and editing or whatever, that's really important. And it's it's another fun thing. So I think everybody, most probably you've interviewed on Ffoton, we have a great life. What a great way of what a great way of earning a living, being a photographer or anything we do generally. It's fantastic, and I'll never whinge about because it's just not me. It's fantastic.
And one thing that's reminded me, because you have a picture of Marilyn Monroe over your right shoulder there. But how did you actually meet Jack?
Oh well, Jack. Well, one of my best friends, Helen. She did a film degree. Got a first in a film degree. She's a really talented lady. She worked for Jack in the early 90s. Actually, she worked for Craig McCall, who is a director. Craig shoots all the Land Rover ads, really high end, fantastic stuff. And Craig had met Jack in the early 90s, and decided to do a documentary of Jack's life. And Helen was the producer of the lot, but Craig shot it on 35mm film, so it took a lot of time to do. And they did interviews with Kirk Douglas and so many famous people. Jack had a fantastic life. So through Helen, I met Jack in the early 2000s. I went up to Jack's house this one day. He lived in Sevenoaks in Kent, and he had a little den which he lived in. All his work was there, and he had shelves all the way, and his memorabilia all over the walls. And he had his 3 Golden Globes and his 2 Oscars on the mantelpiece. And we were just talking about something, and he opened a drawer on his desk, and there was this stack of negatives in this drawer, and they weren't even in bags; they were just scratched. 5.4 negs. So I'm presuming he used to shoot on Hasselblad, so I imagine they're copy negs, but scratched, warped, terrible condition. I held it up to the light, and it was Marilyn Monroe. I said, Jack said, "What's this, Jack?" And he said, "Oh yeah." He said, I shot those." He said, "There's a few in that drawer." And I was going, there was hundreds in this drawer. Audrey Hepburn, Marilyn Monroe, Sophia Loren. Oh gosh, his cousin was
Deborah Carr, I think, was one.
I think yes, and I can't remember.
Ava Gardner.
Yes, Ava Gardner. So all these people, and I said, "So what's the story behind this?" He said, "Well, basically," he said, "it was all in the sort of 50s. It was." He said, "I was doing a lot of work, and I, be friends with everything." And the Marilyn Monroe one was a very interesting little story. Basically, he was shooting The Prince and the Showgirl with Laurence Olivier, and they were shooting it in Hollywood. And Marilyn loved Jack. He thought he was fantastic. And they were good friends. And at the time, Marilyn Monroe was with Arthur Miller. So he went to Marilyn and Arthur's house in Beverly Hills, wherever it was, to go and photograph Marilyn. Just, little pictures, a little gift from him to them, and, just take some photographs of them.
I think just to pick up on what you said about Marilyn loving Jack, there was a quote that I picked up on, and she said, "He's the best cameraman in the world, and I've got him." So it just proves that she had a lot of respect for him.
Oh, she did. I mean, she really did. Yeah, he had a lot of love for her as well. It was a real friendship. So he turns up at this house expecting to photograph Marilyn, but Marilyn's still in bed. He turns about 10 o'clock. So Arthur says, "Well, do you want some breakfast?" "We have some breakfast." We have some breakfast. Then lunchtime comes along, Marilyn's still not around, and they have some lunch, and then in the afternoon, "Should we go and play some tennis, Jack?" "Yeah, okay, let's go. Come on, Arthur, we'll go and play some tennis." So he went and played some tennis. And about 6 o'clock, Marilyn turns up. And he does these beautiful photographs of Marilyn. Absolutely superb images, and this is what these images were. These images would never been seen by anybody. They were gifts to the stars, effectively, that he was working with. And that was it. They'd never been seen the light of day. So I said to Jack, "Look, Jack, this is 2002, so I said, look, I can take these, I can scan them, and we can print them big, and I can restore these. I can make these look great, because we couldn't print from the neck because it was too scratched and too damaged, because couldn't do it. So I took the drawer with me, literally, and I brought them back to the studio, went through them all, took out about we did about 29 pictures in the end, And I bought an Imicon scanner. This is before I had so many children. So I went out, bought an Imicon scanner, went out and bought a Epson 9600 at the time. It was a G-Clay printer, which did a good job. And I embarked on restoring these negatives. And that was the fruit. And that's how I ended up with the big printer and the scanning and we evolved into messing about with print.
How many prints of these film stars have you done then?
Well, Jack signed about 20 of each, and I still got them all. They're just in a box, and because as you can gather from earlier in our conversation, I don't tell anybody what I do or who I am, or where nobody knows that I've got them.
Well, they will now.
So it was, though, interestingly enough, there is, going back to what you were saying about Marilyn and the video that I shot. Basically, there's a play of Jack's life coming out. It's called Prism, and it's coming out in September. It's been launched. Robert Lindsay is playing Jack in the play, and it's about the last 6 months of Jack's life, and it's a lovely little story actually, because Mason, Jack's son, I'm good friends with, but in the last 6 months of Jack's life, he started to get dementia. He had dementia, and but it manifested in him thinking that he was on a film set. He was still working on a film set. And his carers were the film stars. One carer who came in every day was Marilyn Monroe. He thought she was Marilyn Monroe. And Marilyn was looking after him. And it's just a lovely, poignant little play.
When you found these negatives and you took a look, what was it that you thought, wow, these are a bit special? Other than the fact that it was Marilyn Monroe.
Indeed. Well, obviously, initially, I didn't actually realise it was Marilyn Monroe. I picked these negatives up and had a look at them. It was a really... I picked them up. I picked this negative up and I looked at it through at the window, and I saw this image on there, and it was a beautiful image. There was this at the time. I thought I realised it was Marilyn after a few seconds, but then initially it was like sort of, well, her hair was blowing, and the negative was. I was looking at the negative and thinking, this looks like a beautiful image, and Jack was so matter of fact about it had never been seen. Literally might be the first time I've seen daylight since 1950 whatever, and I looked at it and I thought that everything about this image, I could see how sharp they were as well. This was the astonishing thing. Here's a man in his 80s who's had this fantastic career, and he did this as a hobby, these stills photographs as a hobby, but the lighting came out of this history of film. He was a instigator of this way of lighting with film and the colour and the use of colour. He was the chosen cinematographer of Technicolor. Technicolor had whatever cinematographer in the day, because they developed the 3 films, RGB, red, green, 3 films with a split prism, huge camera, and Jack was the chosen cinematographer to take that camera around the world, photographing. He photographed Mount Vesuvius, he photographed the Mona Lisa in the Louvre, all the way around, because they wanted to see colour. And there's this man standing next to me with the history of cinematography behind him, a pioneer in that cinematography, and I'm picking up a negative which he just shot at in a lunchtime or a Saturday afternoon, and it was really quite, well, it wasn't I don't say emotional, but it was a moment. It was a moment thinking, wow, this is fantastic.
It wasn't just the technical aspects either, because these were some of the most famous people in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Of the day, absolutely, most famous people of the day. He discovered Sophia Loren. He had a little production company with Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn was his best mate. So Errol and him had this little production company. At the time, they were in Greece shooting this little film. Jack was walking down the street, and there's Sophia Loren coming towards him, and he stops her, and he said, "Oh, I'd like to do a screen test of you. I'm a cinematographer, a little old line, but and." So then he did this screen test. Now Errol Flynn thought, "Oh no, Jack, she'll never come to anything." But Jack knew that she would, and she became the superstar she is today, still the beautiful woman she is. But these negatives embodied that period of time. They were there in a drawer. They were done by a man of immense skill and knowledge, pioneer, who took these little photographs every now and again of these famous people and gave them to them as gifts. That's all they were. They were gifts to these people. And yes, so there was a tremendous feeling of this is real history. This is and I scanned them, and when I was scanning them, I was retouching them. The quality, the Audrey Hepburn prints are you can see every single pore in her skin. The end of her nose is out of focus. Her eyes are pin sharp, and everything in that plane is perfect. It's every pore you can see, every little hair. It's superb. The man was technically brilliant. And when you bear in mind, he was shooting with tungsten light. It would have been a tungsten light source, classic film lighting of that period. And he would have shot on a tripod wide open. It would have been wide open, he would have nailed his focus, and bang, there it is. Genius. Absolute genius of a man. And really, from my point of view, inspirational. And I'm sure from every other point of view, every other person's point of view, an inspirational man. And astonishing. Very briefly, Jack did The Vikings with Kirk Douglas and Tony Curtis. And there's a lovely soundtrack to that film. And because when Kirk Douglas dies, he's on a flaming Viking ship, goes out into the fjord, and the music comes up, and it just pales, and it's beautiful, very poignant, very lovely. And they did exactly the same with Jack's coffin coming out of the church, and it was just and Jack was just such a lovely man, and so the play is a story of Jack's
final 6 months.
And it's a lovely thing. It really is. There's another little thing about Jack before we just move on. Jack, going on about doing everything in camera, Jack was doing a Powell and Pressburger film, Matter of Life and Death, with David Niven. It was on the beach. One of the opening scenes, or one of the scenes in it, is David Niven walking along the beach, and he comes out of the mist. Now, they were on the shoot, and I remember, we used to go to dinner with Jack, and he used to always tell all these stories. He was on the beach, and Michael Powell was saying to Jack, right, Jack, what I want is David to come out of the mist. And so they had smoke machines and all bits and pieces, but it wasn't dense enough because it was just dispersing quickly. So Michael said, so what can we do, Jack? What can we do? And Jack said to Michael, he said, right, okay, Michael said, put your eye up to the lens. And so he said, close your eye, close one eye, right up to the lens, have a look at this. And Jack goes around saying, and he says, "Sorry, David, come here now. Just walk towards me. Walk towards the camera." So David Niven starts walking towards the camera, and Jack goes to the front of the lens and just goes on the front of the lens, blows on the front of the lens, and as the mist recedes, David Niven appears out of the mist. Michael Powell is going beside himself. Jack, that's exactly. Oh my God, that's fantastic! And that's it.
So simple.
And I think simplicity is important, and we need to keep hold of simplicity.
Yeah,
it's really important.
Just before we leave Jack, there's one story which has got nothing to do with photography whatsoever. Right. It's how he got his name.
That's interesting. It was a little interesting. Basically, his parents were vaudeville touring actors. And they toured the United Kingdom, but they were born in Hungary. So they were from Hungary, and their name was Gran, Gran. And at the time, the Gran sounds fine to me now, but at the time they thought, oh no, Gran sounds a bit sort of, it's a bit ethnic, it's a bit, no, we won't get work like doing that. So we need to change our name. And they literally said, and this is from Jack's own mouth, they basically arrived at Cardiff, they said, where's that lovely place we play? And I said, oh, Cardiff. Yeah, let's call ourselves Cardiff, that's it. That was it. That's exactly how it came. And it's strange how it's come full circle now with what I'm doing and the prints and that sort of stuff. It's an interesting little thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's go on. That's a great story, but I just wanted to tell that. But the one thing now, the fact is, you've bought all this equipment and all this printing equipment.
Yeah.
And it's almost another string to the bow that you can
Yeah.
start doing more maybe high-end printing work for exhibitions or whatever, or copying artists' work.
Yes.
It's more income.
It is. It's a revenue stream. Again, I don't advertise it. Oh, what's coming out of this? I just don't do anything, do I? I'm very, very lazy. Basically, from the Jack Cardiff thing came the fact that I have all this other kit, and I know several artists. I do a lot of work with Harry Holland, for instance, and great artist, and will copy the artwork. So I've done artwork copying. I've got a little technique for that, which works very, very well. And so word of mouth, other artists have found out, and I do artwork copying, and I do these fine art prints, but also with other photographers. I enjoy other photographers' company, and I hopefully get on with most of them. I'm sure the people I know, and I love seeing their work and other people's work, and it's a real joy to be able to produce. So it's like some of your work, Glenn. It's fantastic. It's gorgeous, and you print it, on. And the thing is now also the other thing about the papers now is that back in the day when we were in the black and white darkroom, if you wanted to do an exhibition print, you'd have a Barita paper, barium sulfide coated paper for exhibition prints. But it was obviously black and white. Now, I used to print a lot of stuff on Agfa Record Rapid, which had a slight warm tone to it, and you could tone them, but they were effectively black and white prints. These beautiful exhibition prints. Now, they've got exactly the same paper, Barita papers, but now we can obviously print colour on them. So we now have this, we can do beautiful exhibition prints for photographers on these lovely papers. And there's some other lovely fine art papers which you use for artists if you're doing like a watercolour or an oil. And they're just fantastic quality. So that's a really interesting, going from the isolation of being an advertising photographer and just putting the kettle on and working in the studio all day. The beauty about the printing is that you get to collaborate with people, and you get to talk to people, which is a nice thing, and that's fun, and you get to see some of the fantastic work, and as you've interviewed many, the fantastic photographers that are in Wales. Wales has a fantastic nest of really talented people.
Wales is blessed with a wide range of photography course, and I'm just wondering, I don't know where you can go to learn how to become a studio photographer. Would you know?
Yeah, no, actually, no, I wouldn't. I was going to go to Salisbury University to do the degree there back in the day, in sort of 85, 86. I didn't go because I went and became an assistant, and that was effect for me. It was a better grounding. However, I think I am aware, because I do some printing for students when they come in their third-year degrees, and they come in and some really interesting work, and it's you look at it, you think, oh, they've got something here, and there's something going on. But sometimes you think, what has been taught, what has actually been shown technically? Because I think there should be maybe, I think even 3 months might be too long, but 6 months of almost a foundation in how to use everything properly. When I get a new piece of kit, and I bore my wife seriously badly with this, when I get a new piece of kit, I need to know that piece of kit inside out with my eyes closed. Literally knowing where every button is, what it does, what the menus are, what everything is, so I don't look an absolute arse when I'm shooting with a client in front of me. And if something goes wrong, that I can rectify it, especially a video. Big issue, that. So, when they go into university, regardless of what they want to do, be a fine art photographer, advertising photographer, press photographer, wedding photographer, it doesn't matter, they need to not be encumbered by the limitations of their knowledge of their equipment, of what we do as photographers. They can't be limited by that. And so I think there should be, ultimately, a foundation in how to use everything properly, and make sure they know that before they go any further with what they want to do. The academic side of it's fantastic, and it's good to know about things. I mean, one of my continuing inspirations, and I will get there one day, is a guy called Winston Link. Now, Winston Link did these fantastic, American photographer, Virginia. There's a Winston Link museum which I want to visit. That's one of my things on my bucket list. He shot trains in these locations. Now, you look at the picture, you think that's a fantastic picture of a train, but they were shot at night, and they're shot, and you look at it and you think that's a train, that's a steam train, that's carriages. My God, there's a car park in front of that. There's a video, there's a cinema screen in there. You think so, how big is this shot? And he's literally spent a week lighting the place, putting wires around the place, lighting it with single-use bulbs, 10:8 camera, everything in focus, beautifully shot, and then there's a train travelling at 80 miles an hour along a track, and he's caught it. Not only is the train still, because you've got the smoke, it's perfect, it's technically a tour de force of photography. This man is my inspiration. He is astonishing. I want students to be moved by what they see, inspired by other photographers, look at other photographers' work and think, how the hell did you do that? And with Winston Link, it was all in camera. It was a shot. There was no digital involved. That's inspiring. I want students, when they come out of university, to understand everything there is to know. You need to know about video. You can't just... In every area, if you're going to be a wedding photographer, a fine art photographer, a press photographer, you need to know about video. There is no point going on a photography course nowadays, which doesn't include a serious amount of video, because they need to know it. And if there's any students listening, don't bother with a course that's not going to involve in every aspect of the technicals, including video, because it's pointless to you. And ultimately, you are a creative, you want to be a creative, but ultimately you have to put bread on the table. And how are you going to put bread on the table? And that's the fundamental of going to university. How at the end of 3 years are you going to put food on the table for yourself and your children and whoever else?
One thing I am interested in is the fact, as we've said, most of your work is very structured, very thought process. Do you ever let yourself free? Do you ever do your own work?
Do you know, my personal work, and I'm envious of other photographers' personal work, because I think it's fantastic. Some of the work is fantastic, and you think, I don't do much personal work, though I'm endeavouring to do more, and I have done bits. Funnily enough, a few years ago, I was talking to a friend of mine who's an artist. He said, well, why don't you do much more personal work? And I said, I'm trying to find something. I'm trying not to be derivative. And he laughed at me and said, how can you not be derivative? How can anybody not be derivative? And I said, well, I'm trying. He said, well, you're not going to succeed. So it's like sort of... So I have to get over my hang-up of, I don't want to copy anybody. I just don't want to... Yeah, I just don't want to copy anybody. It's as simple as that. It's like being in junior school, not copying anybody. It's literally that. And so when I do bits and pieces, and there's a few bits and pieces on my old website, but I do enjoy, and it is an extension of what I do commercially as a photographer, I do enjoy the pedantic nature of photographing stuff. And I try and make it as individual as possible. And I'm trying now, Instagram's interesting from a point of view that you can now put that work out there, and you can start to show people and get feedback from people about what they think. And that's interesting. I'm always interested in what people think. So you get scared about what people think, because they're going to tell you it's crap. But, but yeah, I'm endeavouring to do more personal work, so definitely.
It sounds as if you're keeping it a bit secret there, because you have said nothing about what it is.
Well, it's analog. So everything I say about film earlier, saying, "Oh, digital's so much better than film," well, I am going to go back. So yeah, so that's been fun. I've enjoyed that. That's
and I'm
great.
sure that this nest of photographers and artists will, once they've listened to this, will be knocking on your door. So really
be nice to meet new people.
Well, thanks for your time. It's been great.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.